and family to the most show out during training camp but still not make the 53-man roster podcast on the internet. That's right, it's another edition of the AFC Northcast. Episodes have been sparse throughout the offseason, as kind of has like news and updates and some things like that. But as of today, we are just under 2 weeks. Yeah, just under 2 weeks from the first NFL game, and a little more than 2 weeks from the first full Sunday where we'll actually see some AFC North teams on the field for the first time this season without any preseason games or anything like that.
Get excited.
How you feeling about it, Chad? You ready?
Always. It really doesn't matter how little chance the Steelers have of winning the Super Bowl. Frankly, like, it's always somewhere between like pretty low and medium, because there's always like 8 or so teams that have a chance. Like, I always feel every year legitimate hope. Like, I have real hope that you get to try to tear down today when we preview the Steelers, because that's what we're all about today, isn't it, Joey?
That's
Previewing the AFC North teams. We are fired up.
And and there's real reason for hope to varying degrees for many of the teams. But
Yeah.
first, what are you sipping on over there?
Joey, today's a special day. What you're looking at right here is your classic New England IPA, noted for its fruitiness. You'll often hear them described as juicy. Get a little pineapple, a little peach, all those tropical fruits you get. And this is from Hill Farmstead. It's called Abner. This is the first time they've ever canned it, because they're doing all sorts of funny stuff during COVID, which turns out it's real. So who knew? Who knew?
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah.
I didn't know. But Hill Farmstead has been rated the #1 brewery in the world 7 of the last 8 years by Rate Beer, which is as close as it gets to Sirius with that sort of thing. So Abner, Sean Hill is the lead brewer. He names many of his beers after his ancestors that all were raised on this same farm, which is where the brewery is, Hill Farmstead. So really fantastic beers, hard to get up there, but I made it to buy some for my wife's brother's wedding this weekend, so we're having a little treat. How about you, dude? What are you celebrating with today, loser?
I am celebrating. So typically, I work out Monday through Friday, and I take the weekends off. But I took a rest day during the week this week, and so I have to wake up tomorrow morning during daddy hours and lift. So when I normally be partaking on the weekends, instead I am drinking a protein shake.
Quest, boys. If you want to be super lame while you're hanging out with your friends over Zoom or some sort of video game streaming service while you podcast, drink Quest. You'll get swole. That's our advertisement. I don't think we got paid for that, but we'll check our bank account after.
Yeah, we'll write them a letter.
All right. Well, I have an extra beer, so I might just drink it for you and then start to say bad things about Earl Thomas and Lamar and everyone else I can remember their name of on your team.
Well, let's say bad things about Earl Thomas together.
What a jokester, right? I don't even think we've podcast since he was found in bed with his brother and some chick by his wife.
I don't know. That? I feel like we have.
Look, stick to sports, right? It turns out he's a sportsman who used to be on your team.
Yeah,
what
sword
is the deal
fighting
with Earl Thomas? What is the deal with Earl Thomas, Joey?
He's an odd bird, man, and
not anymore.
To say that like nobody could have seen this coming, like the way that things ended kind of unceremoniously in Seattle with lingering animosity and things like that over there. So the Earl Thomas saga for the Ravens, and even though the tip of the iceberg has been in the news the last week or so for us, apparently it's just been kind of a weird existence for him, a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit as far as like team chemistry goes, basically since he's been here. And there were like some secret fines this off season through training camp for missing meetings and things like that. And then Chuck Clark, who, especially after the fact, and guys are going to rally around the guy that's still there. It's just kind of like the nature of it. But so take that for what it's worth. But after the fact, everybody has rallied around Chuck Clark as he's the leader of the defense. You know, he kind of grew into it last year. And so they were doing red zone drills, and red zone, that's money making time on offense and defense in the NFL. And Earl blew an assignment, and Chuck Clark kind of got in his ass about it. And apparently Earl Thomas responded initially with like, "Hey man, like, relax, it's cool." And then Chuck Clark reacted to that with, "No, it's not cool. And if you were in at these meetings, you would know that and you would get it, but you don't get it." And that led to some physical altercation. And the Ravens relieved Earl Thomas of his duty to be at practice that day and then told him to stay home the next. I think the altercation happened on Thursday, and on Saturday morning, Earl Thomas was cut. Apparently, the Ravens have a veteran leadership council made up of players on the team, and they unanimously recommended to the rest of the staff that Earl Thomas not be on the team anymore, basically.
So, my understanding of the cap situation is that it's still pretty fluid based on whether or not the Ravens are successful filing a grievance to collect his $10 million salary and whether or not he gets signed, because some of that money might kind of get passed to the next team he signs with. But we don't want to get into the weeds on this. What we need to focus on is that the Ravens could lose upwards of $20 million of cap availability. So, on a scale of Steelers way up high and Ravens way down low, I think that's it. That's scale. If you want to have locker room culture, presence, and you have a cancer, Mike Tomlin can keep that thing going for years and years. And John Harbaugh, he can get like one sort of average year before it all blows up in his face. So if you guys are wondering who the best coach in the AFC North is in terms of culture, it's Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh is a distant second. And then all the people that keep getting fired in Ohio.
Yeah. I mean, think about all the years that Mike Tomlin has led his team to the best record in the AFC with a running back as his quarterback.
Yeah, well,
I mean, Mike Tomlin had actual quarterbacks last year and only went 8-8. So,
well, that's debatable. I think there are many people that would take up that debate. But I just wanted to briefly touch on culture for a minute because I think it's a great moment to directly compare the teams. And in this one, the Steelers clearly come out way on top. They were able to manage that sort of cancerous presence in the locker room for a very long time. And the Ravens just couldn't handle it. And that's okay. Dude, sometimes your favorite team isn't the best at everything. And that's okay, Joe. You don't have to take a big sip of your protein shake and flex and get mad yet. Because I'm not even getting I'm just getting started.
Oh, man.
So Baltimore lost Earl Thomas. That's going to be a big deal for their defense. You're probably going to want to talk about Sean Elliott. Deshaun.
Mm-hmm.
D-vowel Sean Elliott. What's he going to bring to the table, Joey?
So the Ravens organization's really high on him. They have been for quite a few years now. He's been on the team battling injuries pretty much his whole career with Baltimore. He's a big physical guy. He's been in the system, and they like him. Another interesting note, though, is that he's been splitting reps with Jimmy Smith. And there's been some talk about Jimmy Smith looking like a natural at the safety position, and so
What do you think of that? I've heard skepticism that he would end up as a free safety.
um, I think uh, I think Wink, if Wink decides that he can make it work, then I trust it. I'm okay with it. I think having Tavon Young back affords them the flexibility of letting Jimmy Smith go play safety if they feel like he's a better option than a natural safety in Deshaun
Okay.
Elliott. But I'd say Deshaun Elliott probably has the inside track. Just the Ravens like him, specifically like him enough to be down, let Earl Thomas go, and they haven't brought anybody else in or anything like that. So,
Do you expect with him and or Jimmy Smith as the free safety, the top of that defense to play the same quality as it did last year with Earl Thomas, or do you expect it to, there to be a little bit of a slide there?
no, I think
Or are you going to actually
it would
sit here on the internet
be
and say it'll be better, like some sort of homer?
no, it would be silly to think that won't regress last year. I think if people tried to exploit Earl Thomas, they probably could have last year, and that he got by a lot on reputation, which is fine. It gets the job done, I think especially initially it might be a little bit shaky, but the good news is that there's a lot around him to kind of help bring up the slack. And the guy that's going to be calling the defense is going to be playing right next to him. So
Yeah,
we'll
we're
see.
not talking about him yet. We're not talking about him
We'll
yet.
see it. It's not like Earl Thomas is gone and they had to sign some scrub off the street to learn the defense in 2.5 weeks and
Yeah, they
plug
signed
and
a
play.
scrub out of the hospital that didn't play
So-
at all last year. So yeah, way better. I'm gonna run through. I have like 3 other guys that Baltimore lost from last year, and there might be more, but guess what? That's what I got. You can run through what you
Okay.
think about them or any others that I might have missed. So they lost Michael Pierce via free agency to the
Yep.
Vikings. He is a nose tackle, one of the big run-stopping presences on the defensive line. Marshall Yanda, Hall of Fame right guard. No big deal there, I'm sure you'll say. And Hayden Hurst, second tight end. I don't want to say backup because the Ravens play a lot of 2 tight end sets. So he was a guy that actually did get a lot of snaps last year. Those are the 3 guys that I thought, besides Earl Thomas, were pretty notable losses. Do you want to touch on any of them and how they might, play their game without them in the lineup?
Yeah. So they lost. So Pierce filled in phenomenally when Brandon Williams got hurt. He's back and healthy, and so that's good. Judon's here on the franchise tag, and the Ravens signed Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe. And both those guys are pretty big. I think they're both natural edge guys. But the Ravens don't. They run like a disguise, like 3-4 ish. They're very fluid as far as like positions go, and so I think both Campbell and Wolf are big enough to. Neither are nose tackle guys, but if Brandon Williams can stay healthy, I don't think that they'll miss Michael Pierce as much. And one guy that has been, I know we're not talking about like the draft with the gained players and some of that. Justin Matabuki, who, I mean, A+ name team.
Gotta look forward to Joe Buck.
Yeah.
Just silks. Oh, it's gonna be silky.
Has
Justin Matabuke.
apparently been pretty impressive in training camp so far, and they're really high on him. So hopefully he can spell Brandon Williams a little bit and learn the position as he goes along from a bunch of veterans with a shitload of experience.
Nice. And you feel good about? I guess I'm hearing what's it? DJ Fluker might be the guy leading the polls on right guard right now.
Yeah, for now. I mean, they also have Ben Powers, who they have a lot
Yeah.
of guys that like do a bunch of different things, and guard is in between tackle, and so they have a lot of like center slash guard guys like Ben Powers and Makari, who filled in really nicely for center last year.
How's Skura looking? Has he practiced yet?
Yeah, he's back.
Center.
There
Skura
was
is the center that got hurt last year.
Yep.
For those of you that are Steeler fans, which I sure is most of you.
Yeah. So Matt Skura went out on injury last year. Was playing very well. He was back physically cleared well before training camp started, and he's our day one starter. So
All right. Well, tell me, come on, offend me. Tell me that you're going to lose a Hall of Fame right guard and nothing's going to change here.
no, that's silly. But
Yeah,
I think
that's why I want you to do it.
I think the Ravens have the best tackle tandem in the division by a pretty wide margin, and I think they'll be just fine. DJ Fluker is a veteran. At the very least, you have a veteran stopgap, and maybe one of these younger guys can emerge. Offensive line's all about the cohesion. It's more about the unit as a whole than individual pieces. And so
That's a
you're
good
gonna
point.
lose Yanda, and like, yeah, it sucks, and you're not gonna replace Yanda, but he might be the best guard ever. So like,
Certainly not the most decorated, because he's not even as decorated as Alan Faneca, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame before him.
just because he retired before him.
And because he's more decorated and arguably better. So,
Marshall
no big
Yanda
deal.
will almost certainly be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
That doesn't make it right, Joe.
Well, we're talking about decoration. So
Yeah. Right now, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, so I'm correct. More decorated.
Alan Faneca will never be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
If you had lost Alan Faneca, this would be even worse. But losing Marshall Yanda is very bad. So, luckily, Lamar's just going to dodge like 65 people per play.
It's not
so
going
you're
to matter
probably thinking it
anyways.
doesn't matter. But really, it does. And aside from wanting to make you really feel the loss of a Hall of Fame player, and I might get back to that in a minute, I'm really curious about the tackle play, and I always get them mixed up. Which one's the right tackle? Do you remember?
So, yes.
Is it Stanley?
The right tackle is Orlando Brown Jr.
Got it wrong.
The left tackle, the better one, is Ronnie Stanley.
So Brown is paired with Stanley, and they're like, these are the best two tackles in the NFL, maybe. But dude, Yanda was helping a lot. Like, you were not gonna get beat inside with Yanda there. So like, I think we're gonna learn a lot about Brown this year. I'm not saying he's bad, but I'm just saying that after this year, they might not say that they're the best two tackles in the NFL anymore. I think it's going to be a real test for Brown, and if he passes it, I think he's still on his rookie contract, right? So he's going to be
this is his third year in the league.
Yeah, so if he can handle it this year, he is going to be in line for like all the money, which is means he's probably not going to be on the Ravens for very long. But all right, so that's going to be an interesting test, and obviously you don't care about the tight ends because the Ravens just draft like 4 every year.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Boyle's just going to step up and be the number 2 guy, and we'll keep on trucking.
All right.
Who was the third loss you mentioned?
Hayden Hurst was the third one. I don't think we need to talk about him that much.
Pierce. Oh, yeah, Pierce, Yanda, Hayden Hurst. Yeah, and then everybody else that they lost, 2 years ago, if the Ravens lost Tony Jefferson, you'd be like, oh, man.
Well, he hardly
strong
played.
Safety, but they lost him last year to injury, basically, and so that's not as much a loss.
Yeah, and you could talk about Josh Bynes, but they got Patrick Queen at middle linebacker, so I don't think that that's really something that needs a ton of discussion. We've talked about the rookie players a lot, so, I mean, we can talk about them a little, but I didn't think that would be the focus.
No,
so the
fine.
2 players that I had of note that you added not out of the draft were Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe. You touched on them a little bit. In my opinion, I think you're really, I mean, obviously, run defense. I mean, Calais Campbell is going to be fine. Like, he's like
Yeah.
one of the top handful of run defenders in the NFL for sure. But I feel like what the Ravens really want out of them is pass rush. What's your opinion on the signing of those guys and what you're hoping for?
Yeah, definitely from Calais Campbell, you want pass rush. He's only, what, 2 years removed from first team All Pro and being like the Pro Football Writers Defensive Player of the Year. So, like, they got him for a fifth round pick, and he is an edge guy. Like, he gets graded as an edge guy on, he's in the last whatever years, he's tops in the league, among the tops in the league in sacks and pressures and QB hits and all these things that you look at for pass rushers. And he's going to do that from probably not quite the edge. The Ravens are going to rotate Bowser, who's been another like big talk in training camp, and Jihad Ward and Pernell McPhee, who, as badly as the Ravens try to depart from Pernell McPhee, he always finds his way back to Baltimore. And so, yeah, I think they're going to be looking for that inside pass rush that Brandon Williams has never really been like the guy to give you that. When I think of Derek Wolfe, I just think of batted balls all the time. I feel like every time we played against the Broncos, Derek Wolfe was fucking batting balls down. Not as much sack production, but
The way I imagine it is that in, I'm just going to call it a four-man front, four-man pass rush. You're going to have Brandon Williams or whatever. You're going to have Calais Campbell on the inside, and then Derek Wolfe and Matt Judon on the outside. And if you have Bowser rotate in, he's more of a coverage guy, from my understanding. So probably not going to expect a ton of pass rush out of him. Is that a fair kind of assessment of what's probably going to happen with this team when they get like 12 sacks this year and somehow still have a good defense?
yeah, I mean, they showed last year that quarterback pressure was not really necessary. Any quarterback pressure they got last year was basically a result of the coverage. They had much more of a Seahawks Legion of Boom style defense than like the Broncos Super Bowl defense, which was like get to the quarterback and your corners only have to cover for a couple seconds. They'll probably be more the same of that. But so that's one thing that we'll learn really fast is how much we're asking those outside linebackers to cover. That will be interesting.
I mean, Bowser's good at it.
Because outside of Bowser, the other three are all rather large guys. So, yeah.
I actually heard on the Baltimore has a pretty fantastic podcast called Film Study. They do some pretty in-depth football analysis, really nerdy stuff like the offensive line a lot and whatnot. But they said that Judon actually drops back a pretty high amount compared to most other edge rushers. So when it comes to contract negotiations, that'll probably help him, you know, from the team sense, be defined more as an outside linebacker than as an edge rusher for money's sake. So you're feeling good. I mean, we are in AFC North, which is officially the division of defensive line excellence. Yes, I know that there's some other good ones out there, San Francisco fans. I don't know why you're here, probably because you secretly want to root for one of our teams. But like, we have four excellent defensive lines in this division, and the Ravens just stocked up. So you got to be psyched. You got to be psyched about that.
Yeah. I would trade Derek Wolfe for Brockers in a heartbeat, but I'll take Derek Wolfe. He's a good he's a good little player.
Did I miss any players that were added to the team that are worth talking about?
The only ones that I had were Calais Wolfe, and I put DJ Fluker on there just because he's the presumptive fill-in for Yonda.
Oh, I did not realize he was a free agent acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
That's notable then. So bring him in.
Yeah, the incumbents are Powers. That's pretty much it. Powers and Macari, and then they drafted Bredesen.
Okay, so you gotta earn it. You gotta have somebody compete for the job.
Right.
All right, so somehow you're convinced that these two players are better than the ones you lost. Sure. Okay. 14-2 to 15-1 or 16-0 right now from Joey's perspective. I think
I
we
mean,
all know the truth here. The
according to the
Ravens are worse than they were last year. No
according
big
to the
deal.
odds makers, and take it from somebody who tries to beat the odds makers every day, the odds makers are pretty good at what they do.
What is the odds makers?
Well, I don't know what the
What's the
over under is on the Ravens in
what's
Vegas, but
not 14?
I know that they're going to be favored in every game. So
I'm pretty sure the over under is 12. No one look that up.
I
No
think we
one.
talked about it. It
I
might be
don't
12.
care. I don't bet on that stuff. I'm not an idiot. Um, so I thought we might jump to some questions. Questions, stuff you're worried about. Guys, we're doing a podcast. There's no preseason. We
We've
can't
talked
watch
about
anything. Do you realize how much work Joey and I put in to do all this guessing? We haven't seen
Yeah.
shit. No one sees anything.
There's no preseason football games. It's so weird to be like looking up these players and be like, oh, there's like
Yeah,
literally nothing I can watch except like guys running in shorts.
right. So we got some questions that we need answered, and we're going to see it play out in the regular season.
Yeah.
May I throw a couple questions at you? Because
Go
I
for
feel
it.
like you're naturally going to be confident, so you should be answering these questions. Are the Ravens going to be able to win the middle of the field on defense with Patrick Queen, Chuck Clark, and whoever else? Like, I imagine their defense is like a U. Like, they own the sideline and they're going to own the line of scrimmage, but the whole middle of the field is this huge question mark.
Yes. So when you're thinking of the middle of the field, you're thinking of like pass coverage,
Yeah.
and that's what these guys are going to be excelling at. Like pass coverage is less of the chess game that Don Martindale wants to play. Chuck Clark, I'm not worried about him at all. Like, oh, that's my work. Son of a bitch. I have to take this call.
All right. We'll be
So-
back with you in a couple minutes, basically.
Yeah, give us a break.